Right, how are we all doing this Monday afternoon, folks? So, we're going to have a look here. Again, we're still on our final question from DV 2013. Okay, and this is question 6. Now, even though, and we've mentioned this to you before, but even though you may not be preparing this exact question, it's still extremely useful. A load of the issues here, particularly with the ellipse, will come up in your short questions. Okay, so you kind of have to know some of this stuff anyway. Now, you're rarely going to hear me say this, but this is actually a kind of a good mock question. Okay, I know, shock horror, but it's rather well done. Okay, nice, medium probably difficulty. We'll know when we do it. I haven't actually drawn this, but as I look at it, it's simple and it's elegant. So let's have a little look through and see what are the issues. Okay, right. It's got an ellipse, ABCD, okay, and focal points. We like focal points because otherwise they give you the point of the curve. This is the happy one, okay? Even gets a smiley face. So we know the major axis, A to C, and look, the focal points are 110 apart. Remember, they're always symmetrical, so 55 out each side. Brilliant, I know that. And then half the major axis, which is 65, is A to B. So I'll get B and D, that's fine, nothing too scary there. L and M is a parabola. Grand parabola, vertex up there. It's 110 wide, and it's not there. So this gets a bit of an unhappy face for the moment because I don't know how tall this is. I do know there's a little line here though. So let's sort of stop and think a bit about this. Well, I know how far down these guys are. Remember, I'm going to find B and D. That's a happy face. So I can come down here, I can get this line, and actually I can come up here and I can get the point. So actually, that's going to be okay. And connect that line, load little parallels, they look nice and easy. Okay, let's go do it. So I am going to go and do my ellipse first. Again, just a rule of thumb with these guys, draw them in the center of the page. Generally works out fine. They usually are not particularly large drawings. So let's put a little axis through the center, and to make life significantly easier, I would be saying put in this guy, the vertical axis. Now we'll just pick a nice little point to draw this. So I'm actually going to pick 26.5 because remember 65 is going to be the half the major axis. So I want to draw this in, and then everything becomes a bit easier to handle. Now, whenever it comes to doing symmetrical points like this, I would be using my compass, just in case you're getting small little inaccuracies. So we'll measure this to be 65, because remember our major axis is 130. There we go. And the inaccuracies, by the way, will come from putting this down and where does it contact the page. It's hard to see sometimes. So I will go draw my major circle. Now, I'm going to get a nice little hole in the center of that. There we go. Let's check how that's coming up on camera. Okay, you know, it's a little bit light, but we're going to encourage you to draw them light. So I'll go with that. Now, as you do these questions, label your points. It makes it much easier. Now, this is not a super difficult question. It's Monday. We've got to start our week nicely. But it does make things a bit easier. Now, we know the center is going to be there. And actually, straight away, we can figure out, well, we can't figure out, we had to get our focal points first. So I'm going to measure these on this ruler, and I'll tell you why in a second. Because we do that and that. Okay, so that's F1 and that's F2. Yes, the compass will be a tiny bit better, but the compass is already set up for the major axis. And I know that if I go from a focal point, okay, half the major axis from a focal point gives me the minor. So we'll go off and we'll get that now. And it just means I had my compass set up for it. Okay. If you ever want to check if things are kind of working out, you know, that should be the same. You can see it is there. So it doesn't matter which focal point you choose. You only have to do one of them. So that's B up here. And that is D. Okay, got all those guys done. So our next step, well, let's go off and draw this ellipse. And so we just bring this down, find my minor axis. And there we go. So from this point on, we're kind of into our happy place. Okay, we just check our exposure. There we go. And we can do our pizza slices and all that kind of thing. At this stage, that should be getting nice and fluid, just like it was when I did it. Okay, so the only place you tend to go wrong on this one is which way are we going from end of these ones. So from end of each point towards the major axis. I've got these points marked in here. So as I go down, I'll do them in pairs. There we go. There and there. And I can see that this kind of makes sense. Carefully moving your compass so you don't kick it off the table. All right. Now you can begin to do them slightly more than that, but you see that this sort of makes sense. If that was sitting up there and I got it wrong, you'll catch it early. Okay, so the issue isn't to avoid making mistakes. The issue is to catch them fast and early before they've done any damage. Okay, and as you do these, you realize you can kind of actually draw 2 lines at each time. It does speed it up a small bit. Little point shows you have found where the point is. Okay, at this stage, all of you really should be aiming for nice light construction lines. These are too dark. If I drew them accurately, you would not see them. Okay, now before you dive in and go and do your ellipse, you got to realize that, of course, some of the ellipse isn't shown. Okay, so I need to do a construction line ellipse here, but I'm not going to heavy it in until I've done my parabola. So just nice and light. Round we go. Remember, as it comes down to A, it should be going directly down. All right, and then it begins to turn again. Okay, around, around, around. Okay, that's enough. Yeah, so we can see that there. It's just light. It's only a construction line, and I'll go back and heavy it in at the end. Okay, so where next? Well, if in doubt, try and locate letters. Usually a good place to start. So of course we need L, M and N to draw a parabola. Well, actually we really only need L and M. So we can come down from D by 20 mil and actually just straight down from our focal points. Save us having to measure them. So let's measure 20 mil down from D. And I'm going to use the little mark from the end of the compass. I know it was a bit trickier to see where the freehand sketch goes. There we are, it's 20. Just go across this way and come down from my focal points. And actually I'm going to go right up to, because this is of course the outer edges of the rectangle. And we'll be using the rectangle method to get this ellipse. And what we found was it goes up by 30 to find M. So actually this wasn't all that hard. At a first glance I thought it'd be a little bit weird, but no, it's nice enough. There we go. Okay, so that point there is M. That's L, and that's N. Now we know that this is 55 from here to here because these two are 110. So we're going to go with divisions of 5. I don't know this distance here to here, and I'm not even going to try and measure it. I'm going to use my equal widths method for this one. You know, it's not worth the hassle. So this is nice. 5 divisions, 11 mil each. Okay, so we'll just mark those off now. 11, 22, 33, 44, and there we go. Okay, so these guys are going straight up. Yep, apart from that tiny wobble up there. Just fix that wobble because it actually is around the point it'll contact. Okay, oops, I forgot this guy. And look at that, it goes right through those. Okay, this is the main axis of the parabola. Okay, so these guys will go parallel to the main axis. The other ones are going in that nice little funky angle. So what we'll do is we want 5 divisions. So let's go and do a little construction over here and pick a number. I'm going to pick 150. that divides into 5, and it's sort of a similar-ish length. So remember, you're going something in the region of 30 degrees. Doesn't really matter. It gets a little bit harder if it's under about 20. It gets harder if it's over about 45. So you can just eyeball it at 30-ish. So 150 divided by 3 is, of course, 30. 30, 60, 90, and 120. Now, so that's fine. So here's the trick of this, and this is just, most of you are very good at this, but there's just a few times we get a little bit caught out, and it is the next step. So we join the ends of each line, but as we come down on it, it's easier to do this way. Okay, remember all of the other lines are parallel. Okay, that's the key. And once you keep these parallel, it works out beautifully. This almost always comes up as a short question as well, so it's one worth knowing. All right, and it's actually quite an easy technique when you get into it. Okay, so this is any length. I went with 150 from there to there, and each gap is 30. Okay, I just chose 150 because it's easily divisible by 5 and it's around the same length. Now, from these ones, we're going to go inner diagonal. So we'll make that little kind of pretty construction we get here. And there's a good few lines. So this is where your neat construction lines will be paying off. There we are. Okay, now I'm just going to do a tiny bit of an aside here. If you were wondering about how to get onto an exact point, let's say this is where you want to be, and we're doing a really extreme close-up. That's your ruler from the side. So this is us looking, yep, kind of like this, looking along the page. And this is your pencil. Okay, we'll just bring your ruler a bit, just like that. Okay. This is a pencil. Now, do you see this gap? This is how you can really fine-tune where your pencil needs to be. So that's where you actually want to be there. Okay, by adjusting the angle of the pencil, you adjust the gap. So if I put this down here, and I draw one line, look, I can draw another, I can even draw another. All 3 lines without the ruler moving. That's how I'm fine-tuning exactly where it goes. Anyway, back to all of this. So in our parabola, we have a point here. Go across one, up one, first diagonal, second diagonal. Watch these guys. You can number them if they're getting confusing. That's the third one, cross one, that's the fourth one. And there's my parabola. Now, if I have a look at this, I will see the entire parabola, so I'm going to go over and heavy that in now. So again, light at first, find the curve. See, I've gone down my pencil a bit to make that a bit easier. And there we go. Now that I see it, we'll heavy it in. This should not be heavier than mine. A few of you are using very soft pencils, don't do that. This is a 2H pencil, all you need. Okay, some of you would even use a 4H. Just depends how heavy you like to press on the page. Okay, there's half the curve. Second half, definitely the easiest way to get the other half is axial symmetry. So we'll just bounce that across. There's each of my points. Across we go. It is getting a little bit, there's a lot of constructions at this point. So we'll just take our time and make sure we're picking up the right one. So there's that one there. Next one. And once you put the compass on the line, it's easy enough to find it. There we go. Fine, there's our next one. So there's where the compass goes. Trying to rip your page like I just did. And of course, don't put the compass in at such a gammy angle. I'm doing this so you can see it on camera. You put yours in straight up like that. All right, so we have our points I always find this a little harder to do. Remember, it comes out directly horizontal at that point and begins to curve. That sometimes helps you get into it. If yours is looking too pointy, that's what's wrong. There we go, down, 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 down. Ta-da! And now that I have it, I'll go over heavier. It's very easy to follow a line that's on the page. Much harder to see where a curve is going to be. Okay, and we don't come across the bottom. So now that we have that, we may as well pop the ellipse in heavy, since we're having such fun doing freehand. Let's do a little bit more of it. Now we've already done our construction lines for our ellipses, so this is just a case of going over heavy and stopping there. There you go. And stopping there. Now yours will pop a bit better because your construction lines will be lighter than mine. Okay, but it should be jumping off the page. That's even a little bit light. You can always bring it up a notch. It's a bit heavier, a bit harder to bring it back. Okay, now we're flying. That connects to that. Well, you can see it in this slide. N connects to D. These lads are all parallel. So what do we know about them? Well, first of all, let's just put the bottom ones in. And the reason I'm doing this, and I can see where they're going to go, but of course, the less we're doing at one given point in time, the more manageable it is. So let's just stick this in, and then we'll worry about our next step. Okay, so if we look at these ones here, bottom of this one is on the major axis, parallel to that, and the top of that is on the major axis. Okay, that's not going to be so bad. I should probably draw in this construction line from L to M and L to M, so I know where these are all going to stop. There we go. Okay, lots of constructions. So back to our set squares. Now, if you're doing the parallels, I always find it's easier to slide up and down this. I know you can do them like this, but what happens is sometimes you run out of space on them. Well, like this one, I know they're all going to fit. So a little bit of personal preference, but this is the way I would do it. So one part of it stops there. Okay. And the other part starts there. And we do, of course, have a heavy line there. And we do the same on the other side. Take a little moment, get these guys set up right. And this is a really useful technique in a whole lot of drawings. You want to be very comfortable with your sliding set squares. There we go to there. Okay, and our top one, let's have a little look. It just goes from the top to the line and straight across. Okay, that's grand. Now, from the top of the ellipse, yep, double check I've got that right. So from B down to the line and straight across. Now, just a tiny tip to make this work out, I'm actually going to go down there, straight across and back up, just in case there's any little inaccuracies. It'll be far more obvious if this line doesn't meet than if this is a degree or so off on its parallels. Right, quick little check. Got our bits, haven't forgotten any lines, any details. No, we are happy. So, there you go, 19 minutes, even with a little bit of a chat on the side. So this is a good one to practice your speed and really get on top of things. It's a little easier than the average junior cert question, but there's some really good stuff to practice, particularly around our focal points. Have a good one.